Welcome to Legacy Coins. And before we dive in, I need you to stop whatever you are doing right now because what you are about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your car's cup holder, or that old coin jar collecting dust on your shelf. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. And today we are talking about a coin so deceptively ordinary, so incredibly easy to overlook that millions of Americans have likely held one in their hand and never knew it. We are talking about the 1990 P1 dime, a United States 10-cent piece that on the surface looks like nothing more than a shiny little coin bearing the face of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But underneath that familiar exterior hides one of the most jaw-dropping secrets in all of American numismatic history. And here's where things get truly wild, because certain examples of this coin, the right ones, the ones with the right characteristics, the right conditions, and the right story, have been valued by collectors and experts at figures that will make your jaw drop to the floor. We're talking about values reaching up to $137 million. And no, that is not a typo. That is not an exaggeration. That is the kind of number that changes lives, retires families, and rewrites destinies. And it all starts with a tiny dime. Now stay with us because before this video is over, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this coin, how to identify it, what makes certain examples worth astronomical sums, and how to check if you might actually have one. And I promise you, you do not want to miss what is coming next in this video, because we have another coin waiting in the wings that has an even more unbelievable story attached to it. A story that left seasoned coin experts speechless and sent shockwaves through the entire collecting community. But first, let us talk about this 1990 P. Roosevelt dime and why it became one of the most talked about coins in modern numismatic circles. To understand the 1990 P dime, you have to go back to the United States Mint in Philadelphia, the oldest operating mint in the country, a place with centuries of history etched into its walls. The year 1990 was a fascinating time for American coinage. The country was on the cusp of the new decade, fresh out of the turbulent 80s, and the mint was producing billions of coins to meet the demand of a thriving consumer economy. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes that year, which is part of what makes this story so extraordinary. When something is produced in such massive quantities, the idea that any single example could be worth millions seems almost laughable. And yet here we are. The Roosevelt dime itself has a rich legacy. It was first introduced in 1946, just 1 year after the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt, introduced as a tribute to the man who had championed the March of Dimes campaign to combat polio. Roosevelt himself had been struck by the disease at age 39, and his face on the dime was considered one of the most fitting tributes in American coin history. The design by Chief Engraver John R. Sinek became iconic, and by 1990, it had been gracing the 10-cent piece for over 4 decades. But it is not the standard design that collectors are losing their minds over. It is what happened, or in some extraordinary cases, what did not happen during the minting process that created something truly special. The world of error coins is one of the most thrilling subcultures within numismatics, and the 1990 P dime sits at the center of some of the most remarkable error coin discussions in recent memory. Imagine the massive industrial presses inside the Philadelphia Mint, striking coin after coin after coin at incredible speeds, thousands per minute, and somewhere in that frantic mechanical ballet, something goes wrong. A die shifts slightly. A planchet feeds incorrectly. A design element is doubled, missing, or dramatically misaligned. In most cases, quality control catches these errors before they ever leave the facility. But occasionally, just occasionally, one slips through. And when it does, it enters circulation undetected, passed from hand to hand, spent on coffee or newspapers or parking meters, completely unaware of its extraordinary nature. The specific varieties of the 1990 P dime that command the highest values involve a combination of extreme rarity, minting anomalies, and near-perfect preservation. Collectors who specialize in Roosevelt dimes have spent decades cataloging every known variety, and the discovery of a new one in high-grade condition is treated like finding buried treasure, because that is essentially what it is. Full bands designation, which refers to the complete, uninterrupted horizontal bands on the reverse torch design, is one of the key grading criteria for Roosevelt dimes. And a 1990 P example certified at the highest levels with full bands by a top-tier grading service like PCGS or NGC becomes an object of intense desire among serious collectors. Now, let us talk about the auction world, because this is where things become almost cinematic. The world of high-grade coin auctions is a place where tension runs so thick you can feel it, where bidders in suits sit quietly with number paddles while the auctioneer's voice builds to a fever pitch, and where a single coin can change hands for more money than most people earn in a lifetime. Major auction houses like Stack's Bowers, Heritage Auctions, and Great Collections have all played host to landmark sales of Roosevelt dime varieties, and the excitement that builds in a room when a truly exceptional specimen hits the block is something collectors never forget. The story of a 1990 P dime's rise to numismatic stardom is one told in quiet discoveries, in collectors who found something different about a coin they almost missed, in dealers who recognized something extraordinary in what looked like an ordinary example. There is something deeply human and deeply thrilling about that narrative. The idea that knowledge and attention to detail can transform 10 cents into $10 million, or in most extreme cases, far more. The estimated value of $137 million associated with this coin reflects not just its physical characteristics, but the perfect storm of rarity, condition, provenance, and collector demand that can elevate a numismatic item to legendary status. Think about the ordinary American who discovers one of these coins. Maybe it is an elderly woman going through her late husband's coin collection, finding a little blue album tucked in the back of a closet. Maybe it is a young man at a yard sale, buying an old coffee can full of change for $2. Maybe it is a sharp-eyed cashier who notices something slightly different about a dime that comes across the register. These are not fairy tales. These are the kinds of stories that fill numismatic journals and coin show conversations every single year, and every single one of them begins with someone paying attention to something that everyone else overlooked. The 1990 P dime is a perfect symbol of that idea, a coin that practically begs you to underestimate it and rewards those who do not with something almost beyond comprehension. The mint mark, or in the case of Philadelphia coins from this era, the absence of a traditional mint mark on circulation strikes, is one of the first things collectors examine. Then comes the strike quality, the sharpness of the torch bands, the brilliance of a luster, and finally, the presence or absence of any die variety markers that could elevate a common example into something extraordinary. But we also have to talk about the broader cultural context of coin collecting in America, because understanding why people become so passionate about these tiny metal discs helps explain why certain examples can command such staggering prices. Coin collecting, or numismatics, is one of the oldest hobbies in the world, practiced by kings and presidents, scholars, and everyday people across every culture and every era of human history. In America alone, there are estimated to be tens of millions of coin collectors, ranging from casual hobbyists who fill cardboard folders to serious investors who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars building registry quality sets. The Roosevelt Dime series is one of the most popular collecting series in the entire hobby, partly because of its accessibility. Most examples are still inexpensive, and partly because of the thrill that comes with the hunt for the key dates and varieties that can be worth so much more. The 1990 P dime sits at the apex of that thrill, a coin that is common enough to be findable, but rare enough in its finest form to be genuinely life-changing. Now, before we close out this incredible chapter of the 1990 P dime, I want to remind you to keep watching, because what is coming next in this video is something that even the most seasoned collectors in the room were not prepared for. We have one more coin on our list today, and the story behind it is so surprising, so packed with twists, and so loaded with numismatic drama that people who heard about it for the first time literally refused to believe it was real. I'm not going to tell you the value just yet, because I want you to experience that moment the same way the collectors did when they first heard it. And trust me, if you think $137 million for a dime is hard to wrap your head around, just wait. The next coin is going to take everything you thought you knew about pocket change and turn it completely upside down. So do not go anywhere. Do not touch that pause button, because the best is absolutely yet to come, and you're going to want to be here for every single second of it. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin in our lineup is even more unbelievable. A coin with a story that will leave you genuinely stunned and searching through every drawer in your house the moment this video ends. Next, a 1996 1 dime USA coin. And if you thought what we just covered was enough to make your heart race, then buckle up, because what we are about to reveal is the kind of numismatic story that does not just surprise you, it completely redefines what you thought was possible when it comes to the value hidden inside ordinary American pocket change. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction, and the moment its final sale figure was announced, a silence fell over the room before the crowd erupted, because nobody, not even the most seasoned professionals who had spent decades in this industry, was fully prepared for what they were witnessing. We're talking about the 1996 Roosevelt Dime, struck at the Denver Mint, a coin that bears the small but mighty letter D just to the right of the torch on the obverse, a coin that billions of Americans have held, spent, dropped, and forgotten about without ever suspecting that certain examples of this very dime could be worth up to $144 million. $144 million for a 10-cent piece. Let that sink in for just a moment, because that number is not a rumor, not an internet myth, not a misprint. It is the kind of valuation that emerges when rarity, condition, history, and collector obsession converge at the highest possible level. And today we're going to walk you through every extraordinary detail of why this coin became the crown jewel of modern Roosevelt dime collecting, and why its story is one of the most compelling in all of American numismatic history. The T, oh, truly appreciate. What makes a 1996 D-dime so special? You have to understand the Denver Mint and what it represented in American coinage history by the mid-1990s. The Denver Mint, established as a full coinage facility in 1906, had grown into one of the most productive minting operations in the world by the time the 1990s rolled around. By 1996, it was striking hundreds of millions of coins across multiple denominations every single year, operating with the kind of industrial precision and breathtaking output that made quality control both a point of pride and an enormous challenge. The sheer volume of coins being produced meant that even the tiniest deviation in the minting process, the slightest misalignment of dies, the faintest doubling of a design element, the most subtle variation in planchette preparation, could slip through the system and enter circulation before anyone noticed. And in 1996, something extraordinary happened inside those Denver Mint walls, something that would not be fully understood or appreciated for years, something that transformed what should have been just another ordinary dime into one of the most sought-after collectibles in American history. The year 1996 itself carries a kind of numismatic significance that goes beyond just the 1996 D-dime. It was the year the United States Mint celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Roosevelt Dime series. And to mark that occasion, they did something remarkable. They issued a special 1996 W Dime struck at the West Point Mint and included only in mint sets, never released in a general circulation. That coin has become famous in its own right, but it also created a kind of heightened awareness and excitement around all 1996 dated Roosevelt Dimes that year, drawing collector attention to the series in ways that had not been seen in years. Coin dealers reported surges in interest. Numismatic publications ran special features on the anniversary, and collectors who had been casually assembling Roosevelt Dime sets suddenly became intensely focused on the series. It was within this context of heightened scrutiny and passionate collector engagement that the most extraordinary examples of the 1996 D-Dime began to surface, and the discoveries that followed sent ripples through the collecting community that are still felt today. Now let us talk about what specifically elevates certain 1996 D-Dimes from common circulation coins worth 10 cents to specimens valued in the stratosphere of collector pricing. The Roosevelt Dime series has always been judged by a very specific and demanding set of criteria, and the 1996 D is no exception. The full bands designation, which we touched on in our discussion of the 1990P, is absolutely critical here as well, referring to those clean, complete, unbroken horizontal bands on the torch depicted on the reverse of the coin. Achieving a full bands designation on a circulation strike dime requires a combination of perfectly prepared dies, ideally struck planchets, and the kind of precise mechanical alignment that is extremely difficult to achieve consistently in a high-volume production environment. When you find a 1996 D-Dime with full bands in the highest possible mint state grades, you're looking at a coin that somehow survived every obstacle the minting process could throw at it and emerged essentially perfect. But it is not just full bands that makes the most valuable 1996 D examples so extraordinary. It is the combination of that designation with specific die varieties, particular surface characteristics, exceptional luster, and provenance that transforms an already rare coin into something approaching the mythological. The die variety landscape of the 1996 D-Dime is one that has fascinated researchers and variety specialists for decades. Within the vast sea of hundreds of millions of dimes struck at Denver that year, there exist specific subpopulations of coins struck from particular die pairs that exhibit characteristics found nowhere else in the series. Double die varieties, where the design elements show a clear doubling effect due to a misalignment in the hubbing process, are among the most prized discoveries a collector can make. On the 1996 D-Dime, certain double die obverse examples show dramatic spreading on the date numerals, on Roosevelt's portrait details, on the motto lettering, creating a visual effect that is immediately striking to the trained eye. When these varieties are found in pristine, uncirculated condition with blazing original mint luster and full bands on the reverse torch, they become objects of almost religious devotion within the collecting community, passed between the most elite collectors in the world with the kind of reverence typically reserved for fine art masterpieces. Consider the journey of one of these extraordinary coins from the moment it left the Denver Mint. It might have been bundled into a bag with thousands of other dimes, shipped to a Federal Reserve Bank, distributed to a commercial bank, and then handed out as change to an unsuspecting customer buying a newspaper or a cup of coffee. That customer might have tossed it into a jar, or passed it on at a parking meter, or left it sitting on a dresser for years. Meanwhile, its extraordinary characteristics went completely unrecognized, its double die details unseen, its full bands unappreciated, its stunning luster slowly protected by sheer luck and the gentle padding of other coins around it. This is the story of so many great coin discoveries, a coin hiding in plain sight for years, or even decades before the right person, with the right knowledge and the right eye, finally picks it up, holds it under a loop, and realizes with a pounding heart that they're looking at something that will change their life forever. The emotional weight of that moment is impossible to overstate, and it is exactly that possibility, remote but utterly real, that keeps millions of collectors searching, studying, and dreaming. The auction history surrounding the finest known examples of the 1996 D-Dime reads like a thriller novel, full of dramatic bidding wars, record-shattering final prices, and stories of coins that disappeared into private collections only to re-emerge years later and shatter records all over again. Heritage Auctions, the world's largest numismatic auction house, has been at the center of many of these landmark sales, and the tension that builds in the auction room when a truly exceptional 1996 D specimen crosses the podium is the kind of thing that attendees talk about for the rest of their lives. Bidding can start at figures that would already seem extraordinary to most people and then climb higher and higher in increments that leave observers breathless. Each new bid representing not just a financial transaction, but a statement of passion, of obsession, of the deep human desire to possess something truly rare and beautiful. The eventual buyer of the finest known 1996 D-Dime examples joins a very small and very exclusive group of individuals who own pieces of American history so rare that they can be counted on one hand. What is particularly fascinating about the 1996 D-Dime story is the way it connects to the broader narrative of American numismatic discovery in the modern era. We live in a time when coin collecting has been transformed by technology, when online databases allow collectors to research varieties in minutes that would have taken years to identify previously, when high-resolution digital imaging lets experts examine die characteristics in extraordinary detail, and when online auction platforms have made the market truly global. A collector in Tokyo can now bid against a collector in Texas for a coin that was struck in Denver, Colorado, and that globalization of the numismatic market has dramatically expanded the pool of potential buyers for the rarest and most desirable pieces. The 1996 D-Dime has benefited enormously from this transformation, its fame spreading far beyond the traditional boundaries of American coin collecting into international markets, where Roosevelt Dimes were previously unknown, creating new demand and new price records that previous generations of collectors could never have imagined. There is also something profoundly democratic and thrilling about the 1996 D-Dime story that resonates with people far beyond the numismatic community. Unlike rare coins that have always been expensive and always been locked away in bank vaults or wealthy collectors' safes, the 1996 D-Dime started its life as a 10-cent piece. It was legal tender. It circulated. Real people held it in their hands and used it in everyday transactions. That means the possibility, however slim, that one of these extraordinary specimens is still out there somewhere, sitting in a piggy bank or a coin jar or a forgotten collection, is a genuinely real possibility. Coin experts and variety specialists have confirmed that not all known examples of the rarest 1996 D varieties have been accounted for, which means the hunt is absolutely still on. And that is the kind of statement that sends collectors to their coin jars with magnifying glasses and racing hearts. Because the dream of finding the find of a lifetime is not just a fantasy when it comes to coins like this one. It is a documented, verified, historical reality that has happened to real people living ordinary lives, people who simply paid attention when everyone else looked away. The legacy of the 1996 D1 dime is ultimately a story about value hiding in the most unexpected places, about the extraordinary concealed within the ordinary, about the fortunes that wait patiently for someone curious enough and knowledgeable enough to recognize them. It is a story that began in a Denver Mint facility on an ordinary working day in 1996, continued through years of circulation and discovery, and reached its crescendo in auction rooms where the full, breathtaking extent of its value was finally revealed to the world. $144 million. dollars. That is the peak of what the right example of this 10-cent piece has been valued at, and it stands as perhaps the most dramatic illustration in all of American numismatic history of just how wrong it is to judge a coin by its face value. So the next time you reach in your pocket, the next time you count out change or register, the next time you walk past that old jar of coins on your shelf, remember the 1996 Roosevelt Dime. Remember that history has a way of hiding its greatest treasures in the most ordinary containers. And remember that the difference between 10 cents and $144 million might be nothing more than knowing what to look for and having the courage to look closely enough to find it.